Hello everyone and welcome back to Agent Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar, and in this video we are joined by the fantastic Baldermort from Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer to talk us through what is Warhammer 40,000. So thank you very much, Baldermort, for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm a little bit intimidated talking to the Lord of Death, but thank you very much for having me on your side, sir.
No worries, don't worry, I'm not that scary. So I thought it'd be fantastic to have you along because I could talk about 40k myself, as a few people have been asking. However, I am not the most knowledgeable in that way, shape or form whatsoever. So I found your channel lately, and when I've been getting into 40k myself with my Peel Knight army I started, and what I really like about your videos, it has a bit of sort of like dramatic effect to the videos as well, which is quite nice, and it makes it quite easy to retain that lore you get from it and inspire you to do an army. So I've really been appreciating those videos.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. That's very kind of you, sir. No
worries at all. Okay, so what we're going to do in this video is essentially we're going to ask 5 questions, maybe a bit more at the end, but to be honest I think the video will be long enough by the time we get through this, because Warhammer 40,000 is a long old subject, and this video we're going to be quite well, we'll see how we go, but we'll have the questions fairly broad. So the first one I want to ask you, Baldermort, is what is Games Workshop Warhammer 40,000, or 40k as it's known?
Of course. How to put it briefly. Now, Warhammer 40k started in 1987 as an offshoot of Fantasy, the mighty Fantasy, which then of course became Age of Sigmar. It was originally just basically transposing all of the factions and forces as best they could from Fantasy into a Star Wars-like setting, but it was very different to that, and then after that it's progressed from there. It's a very expansive war game, but also a bit of a phenomenon these days. You've got computer games, you've got a lot of audiobooks, books, and some of them have actually gone into the New York bestseller. So it's also going to have a TV show, multiple cartoons, and live action. But of course, the most important thing is it's a massive game, just like Age of Sigmar. And to be honest, it copies a lot of the rules of Sigmar. So it won't be too difficult to get into. Just think less swords, more guns.
Exactly like I say, it is the sci-fi version of what Warhammer Fantasy once was. And I'm not going to go and say what was best and stuff in terms of lore, because Warhammer Fantasy was fantastic, but Warhammer 40k lore is... I just almost wish they would one day do like a Game of Thrones style length series apart from the ending of something like the Horus Heresy, because that... I know that's not strictly Warhammer 40,000, but that is where it all comes from, and that sort of... the writing involved in Horus Heresy and Warhammer 40k is... really fantastic from Black Library. So if you're interested in lore and all those sorts of things, there is a wealth already out there.
I mean, I would equate the Horus Heresy to the world that was. 40k is more like Age of Sigmar. It's 10,000 years later, just like Sigmar is a period after the world that was. Both lend to each other. It's really well done, to be honest.
Yeah, which is absolutely great. And obviously, am I right by thinking it all... I know you just said, but was it all started by the strategy game itself, and then all the lore and the all the like merchandising and licensing came from there? Because obviously we've got computer games, everything. A famous one is Dawn of War, which I'm sure lots of 40k plans have played, and maybe even some fantasy fans have played that as well.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I would say it started off pretty slow in the first couple of years, but it all started with one book called Rogue Trader, and that showed elves and dwarves and marines in space, but it was such a dark dystopia that it kind of just it was very entrancing. A lot of people got straight into it, and the misery of Warhammer 40k is one of its probably, they call it the grim dark, because absolutely everything is miserable. The difference between Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k is there are very, very few heroes in the grim darkness of the future, but everyone has a reason to really get down and scrap with each other. It's actually quite fun for that.
Exactly, and it makes it so different, because those heroes, are they really all shy and shiny and perfect? compared to a lot of the heroes we have from other fantasy and sci-fi tropes.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think they've got a lot of nuance in, say, some of the characters of the old world, and obviously I'll be updating myself on Sigmar with your site. Thank you very much. But there are no real heroes in the grim darkness of the future. There are a couple of people who you can look at myopically and say, "Ooh, they look like a goodie," but when you get down to it, will they massacre an entire civilization if necessary? Yep. There is no one who is a Jedi Knight. There are no good guys in Warhammer 40k. Everything is just a huge blancmange of greys. But again, it gives great impetus for anyone, even two space marines. They're supposed to be allied factions. If you're playing two armies, you can just say, yeah, we just dislike each other, and then fight. It's perfect.
Exactly. And then that sort of puts me into my next question, which is a bit more of a personal one, but why do you like Warhammer 40,000?
I think it's because it's got so many different avenues. They call it the hobby when you're playing Warhammer 40k, because you can play a computer game, you can listen to the audio dramas, you can listen to the music, you can paint the figures. It's so expansive as well. You've got, as I say, a massive runs of books. Any one faction you like, generally there will be a wealth of escapism for you, as I say, and it's been built up over 30 years. So yes, there are changes, but on the other hand, you could honestly, you could spend weeks and months and years and decades, and you would never know it all. I don't. No one does.
No, it's
perfect escapism. Oh, sorry.
I know exactly. I was just going to say there's so much to it, and like I said there, like a really nice personal part of that, which we all can feel, is doesn't matter what army you do. Like even if your army is one of the ones that aren't the most popular in the game, there's still going to be more than likely some lore on it. Even just on YouTube, but there's probably going to be a novel out there or something for you, which is great.
Oh yeah, multiple novels on most things, and again, they like throwing in lots of secrets which they never reveal, etc. So you can actually sit down with two people reading the same set of, say, 20 books even, and they will have a totally different perspective. Again, it's the perfect escapism, because you bring your own perspective, and then your perspectives will change as the plot changes and the books change. But again, it's perfect. You can just sit down and talk with a friend and argue with a friend heatedly if you want, but then after that, finish your beer, clasp hands and say, I don't believe that these guys are good guys, you don't believe my guys are good guys, but at the end of the day, you've just not worried about your life for a while. It's wonderful.
It's fantastic. And like I say, from the grim dark future, well, not even future really, but just the grim darkness of this world of 2020, it's nice to have that escapism to just see how much worse it really could be. And
oh god, yes.
Oh yeah, horrendous. And because talking about that, I was going to say, like, to start talking about some settings and all that sort of thing, because like we keep mentioning the year, the 41st millennium, is a grim and dark place, and what is the setting for that?
Right then, this is going to take a couple of seconds, but don't worry, it won't take as long as you may think from the start. Okay, basically humanity goes out into the stars between, say, the ages of 5,000 to 15,000. We go through this glorious period called the golden age of humanity, and then after that everything's absolutely wonderful, like Star Trek, everyone's pally, everything's nice, and then after that huge amounts of problems occur. There's this entire period of 5,000 years where humanity's absolutely knocked the heck out of it. There's no travel, we're wiped out nearly, it's disaster. And then the emperor of mankind, imagine now Sigmar, that kind of a person arises, and then after that you've got, as I say, there's two groups. During the Horus period, he basically makes his space marines and takes over the vast majority of the galaxy. It's wonderful. Then everything goes to absolute poo. As there's a rebellion, there's an absolute huge civil war called the Horus Heresy. 10,000 years later. Now, in that period, everything was supposed to be logical, scientific, and atheistic. 10,000 years later of the Imperium. Everything's basically a huge, absolute nightmare. No one is having a good time. Everything's based on religion, and if you are not of the right colour, the right stripe, and you don't believe in the Emperor, you are burned at the stake. Humanity is regressing in all of its science, and of course you have alien races who are seeing the weakness and attacking at all points. It's absolutely fantastic, and of course all of the people in that civil war, half of humanity, if you will, it's not actually that way, but half of the Space Marines are actually evil. They worship all of the guys you guys are going to know all about, Khorne, Slanesh, Zeets. So they work for them as well. So it's, again, they call it, the byline of Warhammer 40K is, there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. Again, half of the tropes you see in Age of Sigmar will be so familiar when you go to Warhammer 40k. So they were now on our absolute knees. The Imperium is huge, but shrinking at each point as alien races are attacking, and of course the Chaos Space Marines are coming out of the Eye of Terror, out of the warp, and attacking everywhere. It's actually a really exciting time to play. They've done a lot with it recently, but yeah, it's just the darkest, grimmest future you can possibly imagine. When you say things could always be worse, this is Warhammer 40k. It is horrific.
Exactly, and just like one thing to pick up for, like we're going to the armies in a little minute, but when you say like actually half the Space Marines who are, you know, like the good guys,
very much like Sigmar's troops, you know, the Stormcast, but you know, with guns.
Yeah, and they're the sort of, if, for example, if I was to think of Warhammer 40,000, think of the models, that's the first thing that comes into my mind. And the interesting thing about the Space Marines, when you say half of them are evil because they worship chaos, but that is true, and then the other half, the good ones, like you say, they will easily kill any Xenos out there that they believe does not really fit for the Imperium's plan, which is the majority of Xenos. So they are the good guys. You know, I've started 40k and I'm like an Imperium player, but the good guys will commit genocide to other races just because they are other.
It's even worse than that. If there is a planet which has been invaded by, say, Chaos Space Marines, even when the Chaos Space Marines have been wiped out, if they believe that the population there have been corrupted or could potentially be corrupted, they'll perform what is called exterminatus. They will destroy the planet.
Just to be safe.
Yeah, the good guys are not the good guys. There are no good guys in the grim darkness of the future, is what they say. And you can find the occasional group here and there, but as I say, this is a rough place to exist.
And the interesting thing about that, though, is like to have a empire that literally spans a galaxy. In that sort of setting, you can't really just rule really. You have to rule with an iron fist, don't you? I imagine, to have control of that large of a region, because obviously all the other planets would sort of want to rebel, or if they didn't have to worship the Emperor as a god, they wouldn't. Maybe.
Well, it's worse than that. They will conscript entire populations of planets into the army and then send them out. And again, no racism involved. It's just like Russian World War II tactics. You know, send body after body after wave after wave after wave against very powerful aliens. And if you don't have a gun, great. Well, there'll be plenty of people with guns lying in the battlefield in front of you. Pick one up. So it is miserable. It's fun.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like the Imperium. They're not these days. They're not fighting for conquest. They're purely fighting for survival, which is just shows how, like you're saying, there was a golden age and just how far it's gone.
And the thing is, I mean, it's changed a tiny bit recently with the return of something. I don't want to get into the basics of that. But I mean, generally what has happened over the last 30 years is actually the Empire's getting dumber. The Imperium of Man, all science is now religiously based, so if you try anything new, you're burnt at the stake. So as things go by, as time goes by, our science is actually getting worse. And some of the things that they've got, these huge titans, come from this golden age of technology. They can't even make them anymore.
Yeah, It's crazy to think that, and it's also like if you compare that to like where we are today, in our timeline, and it's like obviously we're a long way from being the 41st millennium, but every year most places in the world there are technology advances. Like a simple way to look at it is like phone technology increases. Like touchscreen wasn't really a thing 15 years ago. It's just shows that how much progress we make in technology these days. Imagine being in a place where technology doesn't get better over even just hundreds of years. It doesn't really improve all the time. It actually gets worse.
Well, we'll put it this way. If you were in the 41st millennium, you took your brand new phone down to the shop, they would say, yeah, we can't fix that. Have you got your old phone?
Yeah, have you got your Nokia?
Exactly.
So then that sort of leads into the next question, which is, I think, for me anyway, would be my most important question if I was looking to get into it. And we're going to answer this one probably quite broadly as well, because again, you could talk about this for literally thousands of hours, and that is going to be, who are the races of Warhammer 40,000?
Now, you'll see a lot of things that you'll recognise, but not all of them. You have a group called the Necrons, who are like Tomb Kings. They're not identical, but they're very similar. You've got the Orcs, absolutely magnificent, who are very much like the Aurochs. You have the Eldar, who are elves. You've got different flavours of them as well. Like, in the old world, you'd have wood elves, high elves, and dark elves. You've got a very similar kind of equivalence in Warhammer 40k. You also have this big, bugly, evil, think Starship Troopers bugs, the Tyranids. They're coming to eat the entire galaxy, and they're doing quite a good job of it, actually, as well. Then after that, of course, you have all of the human races, but there's not quite as much diversity, I would say, as there is in Age of Sigmar. So like, you don't really have the lizard men, etc., and other things. But so Orcs, Eldar, you don't have dwarves either. They were written out. Yeah, they were squats. They got squatted, but that was because Warhammer 40k. It does one. They've been a lot of people have been asking for them to come back, but I mean they were squatted, as they say, because I think Warhammer 40k wanted to grow up and cut its ties with, not be seen as just baby Sigmar or baby fantasy, and that's why they killed off one group. But I mean that's the majority of them. Bear with me 10 seconds. I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm just going to check that online. You also have Tau, how to put it? They're kind of they're the only positive group, and even then they've got a darker side as well. But they're a younger race. They're coming out. They're actually moving forward in technology. So they're the only race that is. I mean, the elves are shattered. Slaanesh ate most of their souls and destroyed their empire. Well, exactly. And to get into that, oh Jesus, it's going to be fun. Oh God, yes. But again, you've got all of the main things, but it's Gene Stealers, it's Necrons, it's Orcs, it's Tau and Tyranids. They're the main ones, and of course Eldar. But the way they get around this is by having so many human factions, both good, Imperium and Chaos. There's a lot of factions there.
Yeah, well, it's like, so out of all the the three, if it was like Age of Sigmar, the three grand alliances you have in 40k are the Imperium, the Xenos, and Chaos. If you want, and they don't all, like all the Imperium, some of it works together well, some of it not so much. The Chaos, some of it works together well, some not so much. The Xenos, they don't all really work together well, but the Xenos probably have the most variety in their models, because the Imperium, well, I say that, I mean the Imperium's got so many sub-factions and stuff to it, but it's got, Space Marine, Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard as a lot of people know them as, Imperial Knights, which are simply the best, and then and there are more than that, but within these things, like, I don't know, the Imperial Knight have house houses, the Space Marines have, chapters, and then beyond that, successor chapters. The Astra Militarum also have different regiments, don't they? Because there are like the royal-looking ones, like the Scions and stuff.
I mean, you've got, actually, even if you got, say, like just basic troops, you'd say, I'm Imperial Guard, I'm Astra Militarum. Great. There's about 10 to 12 different flavours of army with different rules. I mean, again, the vast majority of their rules are the same, but they've got different bonuses and different minuses here, there and everywhere, which can actually make them play in a very, very different way. So although it may on paper look like we've already got so many different factions, when you actually drill down into the rules, you can play pretty much, again, 10, 12 different armies just from Astra Militarum. Space Marines, you've got about 12, well, you've got 9 legions, and you've got, different successors, and you can also make up your own chapter. You can add different bonuses from here and there and make up your own flavour. So again, there aren't that many if you look at it as it's just a Space Marine. But one Space Marine fighting alongside another, they could have completely different, and I mean completely different styles. One will be sneaky beaky, and the other one will be right down your throat, and the other one would stand back and fire. So there's a lot of different play styles there for each different faction. As you say about Titans, etc., you've got the different households. So one, although they are huge, just big robots, if you will, Titans, one group of Titans would go in close with massive chainsaws and destroy everything. Another would stand back and just blow the heck out of everything. Another one would be mid-range. So you really have a lot of diversity there, my friend.
Exactly. And just to put, like you say, in the Astra Militarum or the Imperial Guard, if you want to see, if you think the regiments can be different, but a lot of the models are the same and stuff. Obviously, it depends what your flavour is and what you can do. But just to show conversion potential and stuff, just look at the Death Corps of Craig, is it called, from Forge World? That's just a regiment that's all about trench warfare.
Absolutely, those guys are absolutely barking mad as well. They believe that any day that you don't die for the Emperor is a bad day.
I'm sure that's
they're that bad. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that just shows us how much there are. And then of Chaos. This is a lot more easy to compare to Sigma, because the 4 Chaos Gods, unfortunately, the Great Horn Rat isn't there yet. The 4 Chaos Gods are in 40k, and just to say now, if you've got demon armies for your Age of Sigma army, you're not aware of this, you can use those in 40k. All you have to really do is buy a codex and a rulebook. So
absolutely,
there's a lot of transfer there, and but 40k, the Chaos Gods are. They've got their own flavour, the same as Age of Sigma. When I say that, it's because if you look at Age of Sigma, the Chaos Gods, the Blades of Khorne are a Chaos army devoted to Khorne. The 40k Khorne version is the World Eaters.
Well, you've got a couple of different groups, but World Eaters would be the direct one. Yes, I mean, again, Space Marines, but they do exactly what your Age of Sigma Khornate berserkers would do. They're just wearing power armor. Look at them like Khornate Sigmarines, basically. Stormcast. Chaos Stormcast is the best way of looking at it. They're just fantastic.
Exactly, and then you've got Empress Children, sort of like Hedon's Sanesh. You've got things like Thousand Sons, which are like the Disciples of Zeech, and then you've got Death Guard, which are like the Maggot King of Nurgle. So if you really like that flavour in Age of Sigma, and you think it'd be cool to have something like that, but essentially with guns and in a different sort of universe, in Warhammer 40k, but there's no way there's going to be anything that direct comparison. There usually is, and I think for me personally, for models anyway, if I was to look at Zeech, in Age of Sigma, I quite like the Disciples of Zeech models. I think they're quite nice. However, with a new Zeech battle tome, sort of spoiler alert, but I think demons are better in that book. But I'm personally not the biggest fan of their demons bar the Lord of Change. However, in 40k, I really like the look of 1,000 Suns. So you can find, if there's any gaps in your sort of ideal army you would like to collect, you can maybe find it by going to the 40k universe, particularly with things like Chaos, because a lot of it crosses over. Because the Chaos Gods I'm not going to say 100% exactly the same, but they are pretty much a direct counterpart to their Chaos God in Age of Sigma. Khorne in Age of Sigma is all about bloodshed, murder, slaughter. He's the same in 40k.
Oh, absolutely. Another thing is, as you say, if you've got a huge, say, Khornate, not Khornate, but one of the massive demon armies, say with bloat drones, etc., you only really need to get a couple of Space Marines and then chuck it in there. And even then, you can still have just a straight demon army. The only thing you'll be doing is, instead of missing, dodging arrow fire, you'll be dodging bolter fire instead. When you get in amongst them and start tearing to pieces, feels just the same.
Exactly, and then so going on to things like Xenos, like I said, the most variety there. You've already talked about quite a few of the things, but like there are things just to like sort of talk about the lore. Because the first thing I was going to talk about are the Tyranids, because the Tyranids are your general sci-fi space bugs, but I think the Tyranids are potentially the best sci-fi space bugs because purely on the basis that we do not know too much about them. We do not know what the Great Devourer is. We don't know how big the huge Tyranid fleet is, because essentially what the Tyranids are is a massive bug swarm, put in a very simple way, that devours planet's entirety of life, including the planet itself, and it's sweeping its way across the galaxy, we think, and little tendrils of that high fleet are coming into our galaxy, the Milky Way. And when we see one of these little tendrils, it is an enormous fleet of, huge behemoth, monstrous ships, all these sorts of things, creatures, but they are just little tendrils. We do not know what's beyond there. That's at least what we think of them.
I mean, it gets even more fun because the Imperium in certain areas have actually destroyed entire segments of worlds, just as I say, exterminated them to try and starve the Tyranids as they're approaching and slow them down.
Yeah, and
it's that brutal.
And on that planet, there might be like let's say a very modest population of 10 million. It's just a few people on there. It's worth sacrifice.
No, absolutely. And they've killed hundreds of billions of humans just to make sure they don't get nommed.
Yeah, because the thing about the Tyranids is there's loads you could go into it, but they also have really nice models as well, I think. If you're, I don't know, like I'm sort of doing this video for if you're thinking about going from Sigma to 40k. If you like 40k but you think, I'm not really into all I like the setting, but I much prefer close quarter combat than shooting. A lot of armies do close quarter combat, but Tyranids, you look at them, sometimes, instead of them having some of them do have shooting weapons, but instead of having a shooting weapon, they've just literally got a massive claw that will just rip the enemy's armour asunder. So, you could make them quite close combat and feel like very monstrous, like the fantasy sort of feel you get with Age of Sigma and Warhammer Fantasy. And then obviously, like you mentioned, you've got direct comparison, like the Orcs, which are pretty much exactly the same, just with technology.
Oh yeah, they're absolutely amazing. I mean, there's nothing more intimidating than someone setting up 250 orc boys across from you. Now, half of them may be able to shoot, but it's more like the sound they like. They don't do a great deal, but then after that, when they charge into you and start tearing him into pieces, it's pure orky fun. They do have huge monsters, weapons and all the rest of it, but again, it's done in a very orky way. Again, I've watched a couple of videos on orcs playing in a battle. It's hilarious. They're just fun, pure fun.
It really is, and that might be an army. You go, it'd be cool, like you say, like all those orc boys sitting across the table, hundreds, and you think that's cool. I don't really want to paint them any contrast paints these days. Get the army up there to tabletop quality in no time. And what I will also say about the orcs is, if you're from Age of Sigma and you love things like, for example, the Iron Jaws, the heavily armoured orcs of Age of Sigma, the big brutish ones. Now, they usually can only count to 5 because that's how many fingers they have and a thumb on their hand. There's like rumours out there that some of the big bosses have managed to put their hands together and count to 10, and then there's even legends of them putting their hands together and their toes together and being able to count up to 20. But that's all just nonsense. So if you love that, if you love that sort of thing, like another thing about them in Age of Sigma, there's some lore of one of the war clans. Really, obviously, all orcs like to fight. And they know the Lizardmen, or the Seraphon as they call in Age of Sigma. They are basically there to eradicate chaos. That is their pure focus, is to kill chaos. And some of these Iron Jaws, the Orcs, have clocked onto this. So they will put spikes into their armour to make them look like chaos, just so they can get in a scrap with the Lizard Boys. And if you like that sort of cheeky sort of thing about them, like another thing is Uruk brutes, for example, which are like the biggest sort of heavy armor, like 40k knobs you get for the orcs. There's a quote from one of them that says, "They are the best, And that is the end of the quote. There's no backing up that argument. So if you love that sort of like, you know, tongue-in-cheek sort of jokiness aspect of the orcs, 40k has got a lot more of that for you. Like, correct me if I'm wrong about the colours, but does blue make things lucky and red makes things faster? Is that right for the orcs?
That's right. They've also got one tiny little thing. They've got this thing called war energy. Basically, the more orcs there are in an area, the more specialist their troops can become. And so what happens is basically they have specialists like a tech boy turn up. A tech boy would be a tech troop would be, say, the Imperium. But basically, one of them would just become a genius at basically getting sticky tape, a load of rubbish, put it together. All of a sudden, he's got a huge gun. If they believe a gun works, it does. So that with war energy as well, it sends out a psychic ping across the galaxy. The more orcs there are, the more aggressive there are, the more of them flock to the banner and then go on this massive crusade called a war, and they just kill everything in their way. It's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. But yes, they believe that if you paint something red, it goes faster, that kind of thing, because of this war energy. If they believe it, they change the fundamental rules of the galaxy.
There's times, isn't there, where there's been like they've been shooting at, I don't know, some guardsmen, and the guardsmen will push the orcs back, and when they get to the orcs' lines, they'll find some guns there that just don't even have a trigger. Or
they can't use them.
Yeah, but because they believe they can use them, the orcs do. They believe it fires and shoots, so it does. It's like there's the joke that I heard as well. Where it's like one of the things go, yeah, well, the only way to beat orcs is just to say to them that, you know, like the ground's made out of lava, and then they all die because they think it's lava. Wrong. The orcs will look at the ground and go, this is lava. We're still alive. And then you have orcs that are now resistant to lava. It's just
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, yeah, that could happen.
If they don't break that belief, if they all stand strong and believe in it, they'll... It's like, you know, that tribal war paint. There's also like the bone splitters in Age of Sigmar, the sort of savage orcs. They have tribal war paint on them. And as in our own history, that... some tribes many hundreds of years ago thought that, you know, painting themselves in decorative oils and paints and whatnot would protect you from, you know, like from mortal wounds of what the enemy is going to do to you. Unfortunately, didn't work in as many cases. In Warhammer, like these orcs, when they put some blue paint on them, like in the Bone Reef, the Bone Splitters in Age of Sigmar, that will give them a mortal wound save because they believe in it. So
absolutely,
and it's similar to 40k, which I really like. And when you say, we mentioned earlier about these massive wargs that happen, a good novel series on that is it The Beast Arises? Is that one?
Oh yeah, the orcs decide to get together and actually nearly take down the Imperium. They have attack moons, which nobody knows how they teleport across the galaxy because they believe in it. Yeah. One of them appears above Earth, and it's fun. It's just pure fun. But again, with the orcs, they've got no, it would take us down a rabbit hole too long.
I think another video, but they are very cool. And if you're wondering what their spaceships are, they're essentially a pile of rocks and some scrap because they believe it takes off from the planet it was built on, kind of. So yeah, and then obviously we've got loads of other races we could talk about, but essentially if we quickly go through. I knew this would be the longest question, but if we quickly go through, like, essentially, what are they fighting for? So if we start with the Imperium, what is the Imperium fighting for?
Survival, pure and simple. They have the vast majority of the galaxy. There are segments of areas, but very, very few pockets here, like orc domains. But generally, the vast majority of the galaxy is the Imperium, and they are trying to hold ground. That's it. Just hold.
So they're on the defensive, aren't they?
Oh yes.
I mean, you know, and they believe that the galaxy is mankind's birthright, don't they?
Oh god, yeah, manifest destiny kind of stuff. Anything that's not human needs to die.
Yep, that's their belief. And then you've got Chaos. What is Chaos' main strategy, and what do they believe in? What's their end goal?
Chaos basically call the Emperor of Mankind, the corpse god. They believe that he's a tyrant and that they are the good guys. They come out of the warp and basically destroy everything in their path. So depending on which god they're working for, but their entire modus operandi is to take down the Emperor, destroy the Imperium, but keep the human people alive so that their dreams and obviously their pain can still feed the gods.
Yep, and also, you know, we talk about this in more depth in another video maybe, but all the chaos, you know, like Space Marines as they're called, they're not all of them decided one day that they're going to be evil. You know, some of them did have better intentions than others, but inevitably they go down this path, and then why some of them still fight for chaos is because they believe that if some chaos Space Marines, if one of them suddenly woke up one day and just thought everything he's done has been evil and wrong and everything like that, he wouldn't be able to justify all of his actions in the last, you know, like God knows how many years. So if he keeps on believing that he's doing the right thing, because some of them think they're doing the right thing for the human, you know, for mankind. Like some of them believe that, you know, being part of chaos and sort of, I don't know, like being possessed by a demon is just the next stage of evolution for the human race to be able to survive the horrors of the galaxy. Like,
Oh no, absolutely. But I think a lot of it started as the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but then after that, when you're standing in hell, you have no choice but to be bad.
Which is true. And like, obviously, we won't talk too much about this because this is literally, I mean, how many books has the Horus Heresy got? That's like a lore series.
Don't even go there. You're talking
about in one video.
Easily, way too many. I haven't even read all of them myself. It's madness. They're just churning them out as well, and there's sidelines, there's collections, etc. There's offshoots. It's a huge expansive set. I don't think any one person could read them all in say a decade.
No, well, exactly, and that's just the prequel to 40,000. That's just setting up the universe essentially, and so. That's essentially chaos as a whole. I know we could talk about a lot more details, but like I say, this is more of a summary sort of answers. And then going back to the Orcs, I think we've already explained what they're fighting for, but just to nail it down, what are the Orcs fighting for?
Fun. They were actually genetically engineered by a very ancient race. At the beginning of the Warhammer Galaxy, it was called the War in Heaven, and they were genetically engineered as a weapon of war. They live, they were born, and they were bred, and they enjoy killing. It's what they do. That's it.
Nice. I mean, it's simplistic. You know, you got to respect them for it. You know, they're going to run up and punch in the face. They're not really going to be too sneaky. There's a few sneaky ones, but they're fairly honest. And then what have we got? Let's move to Tyranids. We mentioned them earlier. So what are they fighting for? If you can
Tyranids
fighting for, like.
Yeah, Tyranids are basically they are just insects. They have been attracted to this galaxy, and they are appearing on all sides. They're here to eat. That's it. Anything that basically is there. There is a sentience behind all of it, they suspect, but at the very end of the day, if they don't eat, they will die of starvation. So their only choice is to keep pushing forward and eating. Again, do you negotiate with your cucumber? No, neither do they.
Yep.
And we're all cucumber.
Exactly that. And the other cool thing about them is that, like, they all sort of function as a hive mind, and I'll let you explain it. What do they do when they accumulate all this biomass? So like when they've beaten a planet's defences, what will they do with everything that's still there? Or better yet, how would they evolve to combat the planet defences?
Right then, what actually happens here is the Hive Fleet appears. It basically just moves forward, finds a planet, and then after that it attacks it in various different ways. And as the battle goes on, they will set down, say, like simple beasts at start. If there is too much resistance, they will actually everything they eat, they absorb the genetic codes of. And what will happen is an immediate game of escalation. If you don't defeat them, so if they don't defeat you, they will send nastier and nastier monsters from all of the genetic templates that they've got. So, like, if they eat Space Marines, they've now got different monsters which have what is called the Black Carapace, etc. They are absolutely absorbing all of the genetic material there. If they win, they eat everything, and you know all of those monsters and all those heroes of theirs? No, they will then go straight back up to the ship and get melted down. They're all just food.
Yeah, which makes them incredibly adaptable. Like, I don't know if the enemy is filled in. If they invade a planet that the enemies have got like a lot of armor capability, like tanks and whatnot, then the Tyranids will. The first wave they send might get wiped out, and then they go, okay, we need to develop armor piercing, and they will do that overnight.
Yeah, basically.
It's like an interesting like sort of comparison. We'll sort of talk about them next. Is the Tau, because the Tau, they're not Tyranids or anything like that at all, but they, like you said earlier, they're so quick at developing technology.
I mean, the Imperium encountered them about 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, and they were cave dwellers, and they were, throwing spears at each other. And now they are actually basically spacefaring race. They have exceptionally good firepower, and it's developing every day. They're the only thing in Warhammer 40K that's actually moving forward, and their figures are very much like manga. Say, mecha in a lot of them. They're basically like massive communist. Everything is for the greater good. Everybody wakes up in the morning and works their butt off for the greater good. So they're expanding slowly. The Imperium could spot it like a fly, but unfortunately they've got so many other wars going on, they never get round to it. But they're moving forward, they're developing at all point, and again, they're developing weaponry, and they change every time they get into a confrontation with someone. So they didn't have large robots themselves until they fought the Imperium. A couple of Titans came down, just destroyed them. Then after that, 5 years later, they've got their own. They're developing that quick, like we would. If we were in a war with our technology now, if necessary, we would develop something overnight practically if we got enough of our guys together. But when their entire race is actually working for the common good, as they call it, every single resource is denoted to them expanding and working together. So they are, as I say, they're the only ones who are advancing. They're the closest thing you can get to nice, I suppose, in the Warhammer 40k.
Like you say, they are the greater good. Like they essentially, when they come across planets, unless they're directly hostile, they'll come across planets and they'll want to accept them into the greater good, the Tau Empire. That's their plan. They don't want to kill everyone on the planet. They want them to join them. Maybe from the barrel of a gun they want them to do that, but they will try and do that nonetheless. Or if there are rebellions on a planet or something like that, they'll try and take them down with a tactical team. Whereas the Imperium will maybe get rid of a continent on a planet or something, maybe turn that to glass. Or, like you say, the Tau, they might want to force you to join their empire by the barrel of a gun, which, in today's world must, sounds horrendous. The Imperium, on the other hand, basically a spaceman walks in with a picture of a human and goes, you don't really fit the bill, so you're all going to die. No questions. Diplomacy over.
Yep. Pretty much. But again, as with everything in Warhammer 40k, there is a dark undercurrent to the Tau as well. So, again, they may seem absolutely fantastic, and it seems, they look like the good guys. You read a bit deeper, and it's like, wait a minute, maybe they're not. So again, everything's grey. They've got a caste system, which is one thing, but also the way that they've actually developed and the history of some of their things, there's a lot of questions. Are they psychically dominating other races instead of just, yes, they joined us because everything was fantastic and they believe in the greater good? Or did they do that because they were psychically controlled? There are lots of questions about them. So it's, again, everything in Warhammer 40k is grey.
Exactly. And then, so that's them. And then what are the Eldar fighting for?
Survival. And the Eldar.
Also the Imperium.
Yeah, basically the Eldar are floating around. I mean, you've got different groups, but the majority are called the Craftworld Eldar. They originally had a huge empire, and unfortunately they made a lot of mistakes, destroyed themselves, created Slaanesh, and now they're basically a dying race. They hang around on moon-sized spaceships, huge things called Craftworlds, and again, they will defend themselves and they will try to avoid everyone. They will fight chaos and basically defend. When I say defend themselves, they can be quite aggressive about it. But when push comes to shove, they're a dying race. They're on their way out.
Yeah, which is, and like I say, they did the most dominant race in the whole galaxy at one point, and then that's it. They essentially got bored, but that's very long and.
Tell for another time. Yeah.
So, and then something we probably should have mentioned strictly after them, but I got distracted by Tau, is the Gene Stealer cults, as they're their own army now, and they're very linked to the Tyranids, aren't they? They are basically almost a scouting force for Tyranid High fleets and the sort of the first step to, I was going to say planet domination, but sort of just the destruction of that planet.
Well, it is. No, it actually is, because what happens is gene stealers, which are, kind of like, think aliens from, the aliens films, and they will land on a planet, and after that they will genetically instead of just reproducing, the next generation will be slightly more human. The generation after that will be slightly more human until you've got humans who look very, basically people who look just like humans, but they're actually genetically related to the Tyranids. Then when, say, a hive fleet appears, you think, we've got all the guns in the world, we've got billions of troops, this is going to be great. No problem, we'll force them back. Half your troops then turn out, start attacking your own men. Your entire structure falls down because the Tyranid High Fleet sends out a psychic call to the Tyranid gene stealers and all of their progeny. And again, most of them can be in high up positions even inside your own political system or your military, and all of a sudden, click, they all turn. It's massive civil war, and they basically destroy the entire defences by eating them themselves in those kind of confrontations, and the Tyranids just come along and pluck the fruit off the tree. It's quite nasty, but it's very, again, fun because it's so horrific.
Yeah, and like you say, especially the political scale, it might be like the Tyranid High Fleet is, I don't know, 5 years away from that planet, and then they might have, obviously some gene stealer cult members who are in the political system. They get into power, and one of the things they might do is try and de-escalate the amount of arms that planet has. All these sorts of things, try and turn it more, if it looks like a nice sort of like green peaceful sort of thing, but actually there are insidious sort of like intentions behind it.
At every single point. What they never actually realise is, as soon as the actual Hive Fleet turns up, oh great, our gods have arrived, they're all just dinner. They actually praise and believe in the patriarch of a gene stealer cult, the original gene stealer, if you will, and they believe that when the Tyranids arrive, it will be bliss and it will be paradise. Well, no, they're just dinner.
Yeah, it's and there's Games Workshop animated trailer for the gene stealer cults. I was going to say a few months ago, probably about a year ago now, when they got their bigger release, and a nice little quote from it. It says that humanity has always looked to the stars for like answers and guidance, and now the stars have answered back. So that's the case of like, we've always looked to the stars for enlightenment, and now the stars have answered our calls in the terms of a Tyranid High Fleet. Which is, I thought, because I can see how that cult would work, and I think they are star gods, and then they don't realise just how horrific it's going to be until they all get devoured, which is cool. And then so moving on to the Necrons, which you said they are a little bit like the Tomb Kings, and there's even a paint scheme you can do to make them look like Tomb Kings.
There is indeed. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say it's one of the dynasties, isn't it? But so who are the Tomb Kings then?
Right. When I said that the genetic...
sorry, Necrons. I was calling Tomb Kings.
No. When I said this war in heaven occurred, and the Orcs and the Eldar were actually generated by another race called the Old Ones, who were defeated and destroyed. It was the Necrons and these things called the Catan who actually did it. They won the war in heaven. They are ancient. Well, after the battle, after the Necrons defeated the Old Ones, wiped them out, and then destroyed the Catan, who were like demons. It's quite complicated, and not too. But just in brief, they looked around, and the Eldar and the Orcs were so powerful, they said, you know what, we'll sleep it off. And they actually just went into stasis, and they've waited millions of years, and now they've woken up again. Well, they are things from ancient days. They've got ancient weapons which are absolutely horrific, and again what happens is if you destroy a Necron, it can then just reform later on and then just get back into the line and keep marching. They are exactly skeletons in space, but the actual backstory to them is just absolutely fantastic, and I really advise you get into that. They feel and play very much like again, like Tomb Kings. They've got that Egyptian kind of feel, etc. But the lore, I just couldn't sum it up in 10 seconds. It's too juicy. It's too juicy.
And exactly, it's too juicy to summarise. But they're essentially death in 40k, like the death factions of Sigma, Regeneration and whatnot. And they might be seen as like, if you picked up the codex and you looked at the front of it, or just looked at some models, you might think they're just some cold heartless, deaf robot Terminators, essentially. And that maybe is a little bit what they're like now, but they didn't always used to be like that. We won't go into that now, but they did used to be a bit of a type of people that you would feel sorry for. But so yeah, it's they almost have a bit of a tragic tale. And like you say, when you talk about the War in the Heavens, that's before the Horus Heresy, and it just shows like that's like a sequel to the whole galaxy as a whole, really. So it's sort of the start, which just shows how many points in history of the Milky Way you can really go, which is cool. And just trying to think, is there another race? Is there another Xenos one? Because we've covered Imperium, Chaos, and then
that I can think of. I mean, we've covered Eldar, who were genetically engineered as well for the War in Heaven. Gene Stealer cults, Necrons, Orcs, Tau, Tyranids. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Oh, I mean, you've got Eldar, you've got Dark Eldar, you've got Harlequins, and they're great little factions. But again, I mean, think Elves, Dark Elves, and I wouldn't say Wood Elves, because the Harlequins are kind of like the bridge between the two. They're elite forces. They're ridiculously dangerous. So I mean, again, 3 favours of Eldar, all good. But again, they were genetically engineered at exactly the same time as the Orcs. They're kind of cousins to them, but they ruled the galaxy for 20 million years. So the War in Heaven is 20 to 40 million years ago. So Warhammer's really got quite a bit of background there. It's 40k does. They've really pushed out the boat to try and make it a bit more living and breathing.
They really have, and they've had the time to do so, which is good. And I'd say with if you were to look at Age of Sigmar, the lore is not nearly where 40k is now, or where Fantasy was, but the lore has massively improved with the game over the last 5 years. So, in how long do you say 40k's been going? 30 years? 30 years? Is it 40 years?
It's 33 now.
30 years, yeah, 33. So if you looked at Age of Sigmar, you said in like 28 years' time. So it shows us how strong the universes get over time. And that's fantastic answer to that question. I think we managed to achieve that quite well as a broad answer to like 33 years worth of lore. And then the last thing I simply have for you, Baldermort, is how would you tell someone who wants to start 40k, how would you tell them to get into it?
I would say very first thing is, don't be intimidated. Don't expect to know everything, because no one you meet, even the writers of the Black Library, someone like myself, anybody else who knows a little bit about the lore, no one knows all of it. Look at the models, watch a couple of videos. You've got bat reps online. You've of course got lore merchants out there who will help you out. Again, never ever be intimidated saying it's too much. Look at it this way. It's something you can do for a very long time and always find something new. Embrace that. Don't beat yourself up about not knowing enough, and just go with the flow. As I say, if you want to know how the rules work, watch a bat rep, and there are lots and loads of them up there. A battle report. If you want to know about the lore, pick any subject, but always know it's a rabbit hole, and it will go on and on and on. Don't get scared of that. Actually say, that's enough for me today. That's great. There's more for me tomorrow. Wonderful. Don't get intimidated. Have some fun, and then after that, for God's sake, play a game. Just enjoy yourself. That's my best advice. Just enjoy yourself.
Exactly, and that's great. And the same with Age of Sigmar. The biggest advice I can give is when you're looking at starting or doing a new army, always go with the models that you like the look of. Don't get me wrong, if there's models that you love the look of and you want to play a lot and you've read the rules and you think, oh, they're really not for you, that's fair enough. But don't do an army based on its rules or where it is in the meta right now, because the meta in Age of Sigmar changes every time a new book comes out. And I'm sure that's similar to 40k, is it? The meta shifts most often?
It actually shifts multiple times a year with every codex that comes out, but also we've got things called frequently asked questions, facts, that drop twice a year, and they change everything. Again, you've just given the best advice. I couldn't have put it better, even if I tried for a million years. Just go with what you love the look of, because the rules will always change, and your time will come.
Exactly, and it's just about experience. If you start and you lose your first few games, that doesn't matter, because you're learning. I always say you learn from when you lose a game. there's very few circumstances where you learn from winning a game, because if you win and you smash your opponent, you've probably generally been quite, if the game's been unbalanced, you've generally been quite lucky. And if you've been rolling really well, you haven't really learned anything from that, because that's just, you can't guarantee you're going to replicate that in your next game. So from your losses, generally for me, if I lose, I go, oh, I made a mistake there. I shouldn't have moved these that far forward. I should have thought about what was my, better plan with this unit. That unit's not worth taking. I know that for next time. So if you ever lose your games, don't get put off. Just remember, it can only get better. And sometimes my best games I've ever had are ones I've lost, because they have been the funnest, they have been the closest. And there may be some things like I'm very new to 40k, and I've had a couple of games with Imperial Knights, and there's not really any mission to it. It's just my Imperial Knight smashes a Chaos Imperial Knight. The Chaos Knight smashes my Knight, essentially. And there's been times like this has happened. Literally, I've had like 2 games probably. I think 2 or 3. I think 2 really. And every time I have a certain knight that goes to kill a Chaos Knight, I'm on 1 wound by that. I managed to kill the Chaos Knight, but its reactor core blows up and kills me. And that sort of makes the game a draw rather than a victory for me. But I'd much prefer that than a victory, because just the idea that just these 2 knights that are hanging on the edge. And if you're wondering what these knights are, they're the massive sort of mech robots of the Imperium, are just smashing each other in combat. And one of them managed to punch their, hand through the hull of the enemy knight, and I don't know, grab the reactor core or something, and then knowing that he punched it just a little bit too far, and he sort of sacrifices himself to destroy it. What a knightly way to die! And things like that, I just think are great. So that's sort of a long way of explaining why, if you're losing your first few games, don't worry, it's only going to get better. And talking about the models again, for example, when I got into Age of Sigmar or 40k. I've never picked an army because, especially at the start, that was, the rules are really good. Especially when I started Age of Sigmar, I started it because I really liked the models. Couldn't really give a crap about the game, essentially. I just loved the models. So that is the reason, because especially some armies take longer to paint than others, but all armies do take a while to paint. So if you're picked an army that you go, yeah, this army's winning all the tournaments, but you've painted, I don't know, you need to paint, let's say, a very small size force. You only need to paint, 50 models for it, and you're 10 models in, you go, kind of getting a bit fed up now. You should have picked one that you like the look of. That, I don't know, that's a little bit explored a bit more why I say go for the models you really like the look of. And also with things like contrast paints, which are like the newish Games Workshop paints that make things generally a lot easier to paint, it means that you can get those armies sort of tabletop ready in a lot quicker, and it can feel less daunting. Would you sort of agree with that, Baldermort?
Absolutely. The only thing I would add as well, ever at any point at which and I've heard you say it myself, is if both of you are having fun, it doesn't matter who wins. You both won.
Exactly.
It's a pastime. It's supposed to be fun. But yeah, I mean, what you've just said, you've hit the nail absolutely on the head. If you go with what you love, you can't lose, and it's going to be good fun, because again, people always say this army or that unit or this unit. A lot of the people, especially in Warhammer 40k, they parrot what other people have said they've never actually played. Go out and play it yourself. Full stop.
Exactly. And like you said about the YouTube stuff, and just online in general, there's loads that will give you information online. There's loads of Facebook groups as well that will give you advice, which are really, really nice. And I'm sure other social media, but I don't use them as much at the moment. But then YouTube is absolutely fantastic. Like, for example, I wanted to know about the lore of 40k because I wanted to try and shoehorn away from my Imperial Knights to be devoted to the Black Templars, which I've kind of managed to do by watching Baldermort's video several times. And that's the way how I learned about 40k. Not just saying that because you're here. Generally, I thought your videos useful, and just to learn a lot about the lore. Because for me, I always have lots of hobby ideas, but I have to try and make sure it fits in the lore somehow. And for me, your video's been really good for that. Again, if you want battle reports and all that sort of thing, there's a whole wealth out there. I know like Mini War Game is a big channel who do battle reports for 40k. There's plenty others out there. Forgive me, I can't remember all their names. There are loads, and you've literally got, like Baldermort said, it's a rabbit hole, YouTube. You've got, actually, if you're watching this video, you've found this video, there's just, and there'll be hundreds of videos after this one, you can watch about talking what 40k is, how to get into it a bit further. It really is a rabbit hole. And if you're, again, like I've sort of mentioned this a little bit in how to get into Age of Sigmar, but if you are, like for me, I'm severely dyslexic, so reading's not my favourite thing to do. So if I can have someone on the internet basically talk through what it's all about and sort of try and make it feel, like you said, Baldermort, less daunting, I think it's only a good thing. So if you, and also the great thing, if you're sort of driving to work or you're painting with your models, all that sort of thing, you're basically your hands busy and you're focused on something else, but you can listen to something in the background. You've always got YouTube, essentially, podcasts, that sort of thing. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. You got anything else to add, Baldermort?
No, apart from thank you very, very much for having me on your show. I feel absolutely honoured, and I've got to admit, I was looking around for an Age of Sigmar site where someone could give it to me while I was painting and while I was taking a break from doing my own videos, and wow, thanks Nagash, you are hitting the spot full stop every time. Thank you.
Oh, that's really, really nice of you to say, and it really is great to hear, and I'm really happy that you find the stuff useful. Like I say, the stuff on my channel, like I think if you click on the about part section of my channel, I think it's like one sentence, and it's just to help spread the hobby that we all know and love, because that's essentially what it is. And for everyone who I don't know, gets back into the hobby after a long time by watching any of my videos, it makes every single moment of it worth it. What I want to say, Baldermort, is thank you very much for coming onto this channel, as I know you are. 40k channel. It's been absolutely great, and I think everyone who's watching this, particularly if they got to this point in the video, can really appreciate the sort of the light you shed on what can be a daunting universe to try and understand. And I think hopefully we've explained it in quite not a simplistic way, but an easy to understand way. I think with that one. And I'm going to put Baldermort's channel link in the description of this video so you can find it. I really generally recommend going to watch it. He puts a nice little spin on things to make things not seem as dry as some other videos out there, which is nice. It feels like you're sort of immersing yourself in that lore as he's talking to you. And he's covered a variety of subjects, especially how he only started in like September, August time last year. He's really done well. And what I'm also going to try and do, I've never done this before, so I'm going to try and figure a way to do it, is if you go on the homepage of my channel, there's usually a bit that says like friends of the channel sort of section, which I haven't added anything there, but I'm going to try and put Baldermort's channel there so you can find it easy for sure. So yeah, I've really much enjoyed making this video, and hopefully if people like it, maybe we'll do some more in the future, going a bit more in depth, because like I say, this is we've done a very broad answers to only 5 questions I've asked, and they've all been quite broad, nicely done, but broad answers. And this has gone on for over an hour, so you can see if we went really in depth with everything, well, if I could get, I don't know, if I didn't have to work, that's fine, or sleep or eat. But maybe we'll get back to it at another point. So, like I say, I thank you very much, Baldermort, for coming on the channel, and make sure you check his channel out if you are interested. So, guys, that's all I wanted to say. I thank you very much for watching this. If you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe, as that does massively help, and comment down below any questions you've got, anything like that. Have to answer them, and be really, really good. I want to say a special thank you to my patrons who do a massive support for the channel and really do help make the channel possible and make me be able to make all the videos for it. And yeah, and what I'd like to say is also, if you've enjoyed having Baldermort on the channel, maybe go over to his channel and give him a subscribe or a like or something to show him some appreciation. Okay guys, so like I say, thank you very much for watching this video, and remember, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.